Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining me on this fine Sunday evening. And it's actually amazing when technology works and we are actually streaming on Rumble, except there's an ad there. It's an ad for Dr. Oz. That is so weird. Um, well, good evening, everybody. Hey, Rumble is about 25 seconds behind. So I do have Rumble on here. I know we'll probably have a bunch of people watching from Rumble, so I will answer those questions as well. Thank you, everybody, for joining, and thank you to our Canadian friend, which I will say that, so 2 minutes, you got to keep in mind you have to account for JST, that's Jewish Standard Time. So we always try to move things a little bit later. You have to account for that. Now, for some reason, I don't see the number of people we have watching and for what platform. So just make sure you comment and audience participation part, and we will go from that. Very cool topic today. I am going to bring on our guest, Aaron from Anarchy Outdoors, which we always have awesome, enlightening conversations. And we'll have a topic for that. But very first, briefly, thank you for everybody. I sincerely hope you've had a great February, great couple of weeks. And sorry for no live stream last week. So actually, like this entire week, there's been like stuff running through the family, 3 young daughters, and we've all been puking at a certain point during the week. So it's been fun. And then had to finish my own car shopping and all of that stuff. But we are here. So what I wanted to do is discuss today is something. So spring is almost here, and we are going to have ample opportunities in order to go shoot. I guess for most of the country, next week we're going to be in very warm weather. And that means one thing, the shooting season is about to begin. I know the match calendars are getting opened up. I just got a notification from my local club that they're hosting their beginner and intro series. And I'm like, hey, you know what? This would be a good opportunity. So, hello, my friend. Hit the mute button.
There we go. How about that?
There you go. You're sounding great.
Well, good, because I've been fighting with my microphone.
It's better to fight with your microphone than your spouse.
That's true. That's true. How you doing today?
I cannot complain. Although, you know what, like this is like pretend. This is pretend conversation because I was on me and Aaron, we were doing a Zoom meeting earlier today, so that we caught up on that. So it's been fun. All right, so wanted to bring you in. Although, okay, before we're gonna get into our topic, there is a question. And because it's by Buzz, who is one of our channel members, I am going to have you answer it front and center. I need to harass Aaron about getting their own line of shooting bags.
Does that sound okay?
You sound good. You sound perfectly fine.
And everything just sounds hollowed out.
You sound fine.
I actually have my own line of shooting bags that is fully prototyped. We just never took them to market. The market changed right as we were about to release them. But if you want to elaborate on like what kind of shooting bag you're looking for, I can give some better information. The market has some really, really good ones, and it's like compete in someone else's space. But give me some more context of exactly what you're looking for, and we'll go from there. We will touch on shooting bags in a little bit. So
okay, we will definitely talk about that. All right, now is this my internet connection or like who's frozen? Is Aaron frozen or am I frozen? All right. So let us know on that. But before we get into the topic, so thank you everybody for your support as always. I absolutely appreciate it. Thank you for all the channel members. Thank you for all the channel members who just came on to our members only live stream immediately before this. Thank thank you for everybody who helps support with the awesome merch. Now, I know I'm rocking one of our sweaters, which are not available yet. But if you are interested, what we do have is some awesome patches and some awesome stickers, which you can pick up on luxgun.com. That is our merch store. That is our product store where you can pick up some really cool products that we do stand behind. And you'll be able to find them on that. Feel free to support the channel by submitting a super chat. We'll absolutely get through all of those questions. And you can become a channel member and have a cool tag next to your name. And we'll do that. I have not set it up on Rumble. We'll probably set up a membership on Rumble and Twitter as well and go from there. So thank you guys, as always, for your support. So, and if you're not a fan, well, and then I haven't brought it up, but we do have a member only and community Discord server. So that's the short link, www.slav.li/Discord. And that is going to take you to the SlavGuns Discord server where you can interact with your fellow channel fans and channel members. And we do post some really cool news, and you have a place to hang out. And if you're one of the people who does giveaways or participate in giveaways, we do have a section just for that, where people do share giveaways and all of that fun stuff. So, on that note, now I think you still have snow. I know we have snow outside here. I'm assuming you still have snow out in Utah, but it is going to be warm in a lot of places, and a lot of the matches are starting up as early March and April. And you're one of the people, so I have a heavy background in matches on the handgun side, but I've learned to, ever since hurting my wrist, I've learned to love to shoot rifles. I haven't done any matches yet, so this is, I think, like a great opportunity. I thought, like, hey, you know what? In order to prepare myself and prepare the audience, let's talk to somebody who spends every single weekend at some match or another. Because I know anytime I text you, you're like, oh, I'm away at this match, I'm away at that match. I know you're heavily involved with it. So I'm like, okay, let's pick Aaron's brain for this. Because correct me if I'm wrong. So I know, at least on the handgun side, I personally believe that if you want to improve your skills as a shooter, you should go out there and compete at the local matches. I think if you want to make friends with other people who are gun owners, go shoot your local matches. If you want to make new friends, go do that as well. Um, or if you just basically want to create a part of the community, go to your local matches, because these are probably some of the nicest people you will find. And more importantly, it is probably the safest shooting environment that you can be, because generally you're going to have one shooter, you're going to have at least one range officer, and you have 20 or 30 people looking at them to make sure that somebody does not screw up. So here's the question: does that still apply for rifle matches as it does for handgun matches?
Yes, it applies perfectly. 100% applies.
All right. So here's basically kind of like a starter question for you. I know basically people with handguns, look, okay, you have Glock matches, you have IDPA, you have USPSA. And even though a lot of those matches, particularly USPSA, does get very competitive at the higher levels, your local matches are typically very laid back. And if you go to the match and you basically say, hey, I'm new, I'm interested in this, people are going to roll out the red carpet. They're going to knock off with giving each other a hard time, and they're going to take the new shooter seriously, um, because it's an open and inviting type atmosphere. I know from our interactions, and I know basically kind of like from the history of PRS, it was really meant to be a professional series. So, is there a place in the competitive bolt action or precision rifle world for a casual shooter?
The short and concise answer to that is yes.
Okay.
It really depends on what you want to accomplish. If you want to get out and make friends, get to know those around you, want to find nice places to shoot, or typically ranges that are closed to people that aren't in like an owner's group and different things. Local matches are fantastic for finding, friends and a new environment and just getting out and shooting in general. My experience over the last several years has been a variety of different styles of matches and a variety of different levels of competitor. Typically, in a region, you'll have well, let's there's two big um, rifle series, and there's some smaller ones, and there's some regional ones. But the two big ones are PRS, which stands for Precision Rifle Series, and NRL, which is the National Rifle League. And they put on different levels of competition. Starting with like the PRS 2 day matches, those are professional matches. The guys that show up to those um, are extremely good at what they do. They're not as helpful to newer shooters in that situation because they're competing for prize table and money and different things. They tend to run in super squads with their friends, um, and they're competitive and they're expensive. 2 day matches probably cost you $2,500 for a weekend. By the time you travel, hotel, food, and a $200 to $300 match fee plus $200 or $300 in ammo, different things like that. But then they also do regional series where they're 1 day matches between 70 and 80 rounds, and they cost you a couple $100, right? Usually they're within a couple hours of driving of you, and you'll get kind of a more laid back atmosphere, um, and kind of a laid back different shooting. So that's kind of the PRS side of things. NRL used to have 2 day matches. They don't host them anymore. I did at one time host a national rifle match with some of the best shooters in the country. We held the Northern Utah Barrel Burner a couple years ago, and we had some of the best shooters in the country out. Unfortunately, the NRL, um, the 2 day matches on the NRL side kind of died in COVID and the components kind of being hard to find. So the NRL has shifted a lot of their focus to the rimfire. They have rimfire matches, like a monthly course of fire, which is really great for introducing people to the sport of just shooting. And then they have kind of more of a PRS field style match where you get more of the um, experienced shooters in those matches because they're more difficult. And but you also get a lot of beginners as well. And then the NRL also has a hunter series, which is starting to gain a lot of traction. I don't personally have any experience in the hunter matches, but I do have kind of a high level understanding of them, where they're trying to simulate a hunting situation where you're shooting. I think it's 4 rounds max on one target that you have to find in 2 to 3 minutes without any help. So glassing and limited gear. The rifles are weighed before the matches, and you have to meet certain things and criterias. Um, power bullet power ratios have to be observed, so you can't shoot small fast bullets. You have to shoot kind of a bigger, like a hunting style rifle. But yeah, that's kind of the overlay of kind of some of the matches. Do you want me to touch on any specific piece of those,
So
or
yeah, I mean, we'll definitely kind of get into that. So I guess like from the number one perspective is okay. Well, how so with the handgun side of it, we would basically say to a person, "Hey, if as long like you don't need to." It's very, I guess, if it's very off-putting, and it might be scary for someone in order to go to a first match, especially if you go observe a match and they see, let's say, or for example, if you're watching videos on YouTube and we're seeing the super squad go through, and we're like, oh wow, I'm not even anywhere near that. But that's basically the types of videos that are going to get the most publicity. Those are the people that are going to attract the bigger circles. So it might be a little bit difficult and off-putting for somebody to kind of think that they can do that. But so kind of look in the handgun side of it, we would basically say, look, as long as you can safely draw a gun from a holster and walk with your finger out of the trigger guard, you can go to shoot a local match. You will absolutely suck your first few matches, but the entire premise of it, your goal is, hey, as long as you don't get disqualified for being unsafe, you're more than welcome to attend any of the matches. So, is there any type of requirement for somebody to be good, or like to be a good shooter, or to be able to shoot past a certain distance in order to be welcomed at, let's say, an NRL or a PRS type match? And I know we kind of like already started talking about it. So like the NRL and the PRS, which are, I guess, like more dynamic type matches where you are gonna, it's not necessarily, it's not like, I guess, some certain 3-gun or USPSA matches where you're running around with a gun. I mean, your movements are definitely more limited, but you're not shooting from the same position. Um, but is there kind of like any certain type of requirements that someone needs to be able to possess before someone should consider going to a local match?
Yeah, I think the only requirement is like age 12. So the biggest requirements for a new shooter coming out to a match is the willingness to listen, have fun, and learn. Right? This is a highly technical skill set, and it's taken guys years and years to learn. And as long as you come with a can do attitude, and you want to try something new, it's apprehensive and it's scary. There's and I'm going to use the NRL 22 matches, their monthly matches, as kind of the baseline for this, because that match set was designed to bring new shooters into the sport, and I think it's done a very good job of bringing in newer shooters. And I'm actually working with my brother-in-law and a cousin-in-law. He's now 2 matches into his learning progression. So I shot last month. Actually, I shot 2 weeks ago with him for his very first match, and he had no gear, no gun, anything. He shot my brother-in-law's gun, and he used my gear and a mix of everybody's gear. Um, no premise, no real understanding. He'd had a little in the summertime. We had done a range day with his family, my wife's family, and we had done kind of a simulated a little bit of like what one stage at a rifle match would be. We had them drag race on dueling trees against each other, and so that's been his major exposure. Was 8 months ago in the summertime. But that being said, no, like the sport is typically welcoming, like you said, with the handgun shooters. You are very much welcome to come out, and everyone's willing to teach you. The sport only gets better if more and more competitors come into it, and the technology and everything only gets better if there's people buying it and using it and things like that. And you can really see that happened in 2015 to 16. Technology got cheap enough, bullets got better, scopes got better, and you can see a real curve into the precision rifle world, both rimfire and centerfire, from 2015. And you can just see a dramatic shift in technology. I could name a dozen companies that exist today due to that shift, right? So, advice to anyone who wants to come out to a match: go find a friend or go find a local match, and go talk to the match director and come out. Come out. I have lots of friends that come and watch, but they end up shooting a little bit because usually I'll force them to at least try at least one stage, right? It's kind of difficult to do different things, but it's even difficult and apprehensive for people who are good shooters to come and try a different discipline. An example of that is I have an employee. She's 16, and she won the high school rodeo um, 22 lightweight rifle class. It's like standing, kneeling, and prone, unsupported, 8-pound rifle, 50 yards. And we brought her out. I brought her out to a match, and very different skill set. She's never dialed a turret beyond 50 yards. She's never done 90-second time stages where she's moving in different target patterns and things. But she did extremely well, and she had a blast in a riot. She was apprehensive to come. She's still apprehensive to come. I invite her all the time. But it's just a different skill set. But like I said, everyone's friendly, typically friendly. And if you are somewhere in the country, there's a whole bunch of Facebook pages with regional matches and directors, or there's some of the national pages where you can go and find that. But go find a friend. Go hang out at the, you know, go hang out at the public gun range and find the guy with the most expensive looking rifle and ask him if he shoots matches. And if he does, ask him if you can tag along.
Very cool. All right, so here's a question then. What type of physical abilities that somebody need to have? So if you're talking about like gun games that were earlier on in the 80s, I know when IDPA and USPSA were first started, I mean, guys were climbing obstacle courses with the loaded handgun, going over barricades, things like that. So people basically, I mean, you needed to be in amazing shape, in physical shape, in order to do them. Obviously, that's changed on the handgun side of it right now, and some of the most gifted shooters are a little bit on the thicker side. How is it on the rifle side, and what would be your typical stage, or what kind of physical strain would somebody need to be able to endure?
So that's a great question, and it's interesting. We have 12-year-old kids that shoot these all the way up to guys in their 60s and 70s shoot these matches. And if you're, I shot behind I think she's 21. She does kind of the U.S. Army Palma style shooting, and super flexible. And she was able to do things on stages that I can't do. I'm not that flexible, and my gun is much heavier than hers. But then there's guys with bad knees, there's guys with bad backs, there's little kids can't move big rifles around, so there's a whole bunch of different things. The stages mostly are designed to allow everybody to compete, and if you have an extreme disability or bad knees or something, they will adapt the stages. A lot of them are written into it, so like this is a course of fire put out by the NRL every month, and you can see there's an adapted recommendation on there,
Hmm.
right? There's an adapted recommendation that says, hey, all you have to do is change the position, right? Basically, they want you to break, cheek well, face, move the gun, right? So this is a typical example of a stage. You can see there's a tripod. So you're going to shoot off the top of the tripod. Then you're going to get on the ground on a shooting mat and shoot, and then you go up and down, up and down. And here are 5 targets at different distances, and you're going to engage them in 2 minutes. So it's a little bit of a mind game. What order, what position, I'm up and down, you're moving around, things like that. So this stage was 1, 2, 3, 5 targets, 60, 72, 88, 98, and 100. And that doesn't sound like a big distance, but for a 22, that is 0.3 mils, 0.8 mils, 1.4 mils, 1.8 mils, 1.9. So that's a significant drop just in that short distance for a 22.
So you're talking, okay, you're showing that stage description, and you have people shooting off of a tripod, then getting onto the floor, then getting back on to the tripod, then back on the floor. There are people who are overweight or who might have a heart attack if they try to do that on the clock. So
do the best you can. We have guys that are 400 pounds that do it. We have, 60-pound 12-year-olds that do it. So it kind of just depends. I mean, if you know the stage is going to be harmful for you, and that's why it's adaptive, right?
okay,
The prone position can be shot off an elevated 55-gallon drum barrel. So that's
okay,
not up down, that's just side to side.
yeah,
Right. And they have a different adaptive class and different things. I mean, the big point is that you're going to have fun, right?
okay,
If you are in the top 15 of shooters, right? Don't expect a handout, right? But if you're not competing for the top 3 places, then it's all about having fun, and they can adapt the stage to you. So this rifle mesh that I didn't shoot very well 2 weeks ago. I dropped 14 rounds, and I dropped to 27th place. because the top 27 people drop less than 14 rounds and the top guy dropped 2. So it's a very competitive, and I had a bad day and I dropped. I'm usually in the top 6, and I just had a bad day.
Hmm.
and you drop really fast. But I mean there's all sorts of things about the match. The biggest thing is be humble. Come humble. Humility goes a long ways no matter what you're doing in life. Be humble.
Yeah.
Come and have fun. You may think you're a good shooter. You may be able to shoot off a bench and kick people's butts, but I guarantee you there's always someone who's better than you, someone who's faster than you, someone that's more flexible than you, someone that has better eyesight. And that's kind of the fun of the grind is I only shoot against myself. I don't try and shoot against others. I try and do better every match I go to. And this match was really
Hmm.
frustrating because I did not shoot very well at the very end of it. It was long. It went long. I was probably had low blood sugar. I was tired. I shot this stage last, and I can shoot this stage with a blindfold on and do better than what I shot it at the match. I've shot off the top of this tripod 100 times, and when I was up on top, I could not keep my reticle from going like this, which is not normal. So, humility, come out and try it. That's all I can really say. Don't be scared. You
So
ever
here,
learned a foreign language? Slav,
yeah,
you've ever learned a
obviously,
foreign language?
I'm
How did
speaking
you
in a
learn the
foreign
foreign
language right
language?
now. You just do and do and do and do and practice.
And do you care if
And
you make an ass of yourself?
well, when I was young, I did
Well,
absolutely.
right. But you can't learn a foreign language without, putting your foot in your mouth and saying things that are
Absolutely,
inappropriate. And the worst
absolutely,
is watching a 3-year-old talk circles around you. And
yes.
you're like, because,
And I mean, so honestly, on that same note, I mean, it's interesting because you're gonna have people who show up to matches like, "Oh, I'm such a really good shooter," and then they're gonna have women, they're gonna have guys with bad knees, they're gonna have 12-year-olds who shoot circles around them, and it's like it really gives somebody a piece of humble pie.
yeah, I mean, I
Uh,
consistently get beat by a 16-year-old girl at this match. Now, let's go out to a field match where you're shooting beyond 100 yards. It's a different story,
yeah,
right? But she's extremely good within 100 yards. And then there's another lady who, her and I, we go back and forth, right? Very competitive. But there's a lot of older gentlemen that shoot really well, a lot of younger gentlemen that shoot really well. And it's fun. I've watched guys in less than a year climb into the top ranks of shooters. So it just kind of depends on how much time you have to dedicate it. If you'll focus on the fundamentals, um, and do a different and do different things like that. So
so almost like in essence, it's like I mean, like these matches are like you get what you want out of it. If you just want to go and have fun, you can definitely go and just have fun. But if you get bit by the bug and you want to be competitive, you want to start winning some of these matches, you want to start winning some of these classes and divisions, it becomes a deep, deep, deep rabbit hole.
yeah, it's just like anything. You have to dedicate time to it. So another good example is my father-in-law was getting extremely frustrated. Last month he had 7 impacts out of like 90.
Hmm.
And my brother-in-law took his gun completely apart. They re-put it back together. They changed the cheek weld. They made sure the length of pole was correct. And then they went and dry fired for like 2 hours. Well, 2 weeks ago, he had 43 impacts. So he jumped from 7 to 43 impacts with just a couple hours of work in a few weeks, right? And he had gotten frustrated to the point where he didn't want to come and shoot with us anymore. And we were like, that's BS. Come and have fun. But when you're only hitting one target every stage, it's extremely frustrating. To ask for help. Ask for help. Everyone, especially in these sports, is willing to help people learn. Except for those ELR guys. I don't know about them.
Okay, so I'm glad you brought up ELR. So obviously, okay, when we're talking about, I would say like NRL and PRS would be like the USPSA and IDPA of the rifle world, whereas it's dynamic and it's not purely about your shooting abilities because there's more things that go into it. There is the sometimes possibly the gaming aspect to it. It's about being the best at playing around the rules, so to speak. So
Yeah,
it's going to
there's
involve.
definitely an element of that game in the
Okay.
rules.
So obviously in the handgun world, okay, if somebody, let's say for example, if they just want to go to a match where they don't have to think about any of that stuff and they just want to be told what to do and just do it, there are matches for that. And it almost seems like in the rifle world, okay, you're going to have your NRA matches, you're going to have a bunch of bench rest matches where, or like even informal matches where it's basically you still sit behind a bench or you still shoot prone and you're going to shoot 20 rounds slow fire prone, 20 rounds rapid fire, which is still super slow. You're going to shoot that standing and kneeling and all of that stuff at various type of distances. And I guess like in that regard, I mean, like it truly becomes almost like you're really challenging your skills as a shooter. Whereas the PRS and RL, they're much more dynamic and it's not just about your skills as a shooter if you want to be at the top.
Yeah, and a caveat to that is if you do not have good fundamentals in PRS, meaning you don't have natural point of aim, you don't have respiratory pause, you don't have correct trigger pull and trigger mechanics, guess what? Good luck getting stable on a tiny little barricade and then expecting your
Interesting.
fundamentals not to kill you. Think about it. You're up on a wiggly, you're up here wiggling, right? And you go whack. Guess what? I just jerked the whole gun, and when that round goes 1,000 yards, all of a sudden I threw it 3 feet to the left, right, or to the right, depending on how I jerked it.
Okay.
So there's a caveat there. The fundamentals, and since June, I mean, I've shot this for 7 years, and I've been decent. I've been like bottom of the middle of the pack, right? But since June, I have jumped into the top 10 consistently. I have bad days. I fell to 27th, whatever. But I've jumped up consistently. I can be in the top 15. And that's saying something because the guys I shoot with, go look at the national leaderboards. The top 50, all those guys are on the national leaderboards. I shoot with a very competitive group of guys. And and it's fun. But you have to master the fundamentals for PRS. Now, like the ELR guys, they have to master a whole different set of skills. They got to master wind and flight times
Yes.
and spotting and mirage. And they also have to have perfect trigger control
Yes.
because they're sending around forever that has flight times of 5-10 seconds. And if you cant that rifle or you squeeze that too wrong, that bullet's going to come out and it's going to go and it's going to drift off just into, you know. So, but what's great about the ELR guys is they don't have a lot of movement. It's all prone. You can get very comfortable with the way your rifle runs and shoots,
Mm-hmm.
and then you're focused on a different skill set of accurate wind calls at extreme distances and different things like that. So, but it doesn't matter what sport you're in. You have to master the fundamentals, and it's fun watching some of the pistol guys come into the bolt gun because what do they do with their trigger finger? As soon as they pull back, they flick it forward like the pistol guys do, right? You're running fast and hard, or the carbine
Depends.
guys, right?
Yeah.
You're up on the carbine, you're like, whereas,
Yes.
like,
I would say that would be a better example of that.
right. Well, I was talking 2 weeks ago to a pistol guy, and he was like, "Yeah, I just did my pistol thing. I flicked my finger off of it, right, trying to get it to reset." And he's like, "No, you got to pull the trigger, trap it, 1, 2, 3, boom, run the bolt, right?" Like, so
Okay.
fundamentals are key in whatever you're doing, right? And sometimes fundamentals from one sport don't translate into another sport.
Yes.
Meaning your trigger control on a handgun or a carbine is very different than a bolt gun.
Yes. You're right. I guess basically like even like whether like say for example like you're shooting a 3-gun match and then going to PRS or 3-gun match versus ELR or even NRA service rifle or any of those type of matches. Absolutely, I mean, there's definitely some crossover in skills. I do think, and it was actually interesting. So kind of like from my perspective, um, the closest thing to a match was at one of the media days for one of the gun companies when we were launching a new product. We were shooting like kind of almost like a stage environment. It was actually we were shooting on a training range used by the special forces. So they had like steel targets like set up in cars, things like that. And this was like the first time I actually really shot a bolt gun out past like 500-600 yards after being a USPSA guy. And like for me, I'm like, yep, okay, cool. Bam, 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 bam. And I was just able just to knock them all out. And people were like fairly surprised about that. I'm like, okay, well, that's because like I'm shooting one, I'm just already moving on to the next one. And it's like as long as you're comfortable enough in your trigger control, like I'm calling my shot. As soon as I pull that trigger, I know it's an impact and I'm already moving on to the next one instead of just like waiting and hoping and praying and all of that stuff. So it,
And
it, it, it go
when
ahead.
you've spent a lot of time, a lot of trigger time, you know as soon as you crack that shot if it's gonna go off the target, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you just know, like you pull that trigger and you're like, man, I hope the wind doesn't blow because if it blows even a little bit, it's gonna push my left jerk bullet even farther, right? So
Yes. All right. So here's basically moving on to this one. So somebody decided, hey, you know what? It's not that intimidating, and I am gonna go try to shoot a type of a match. Um, but then they basically hear, oh, like they go observe a local match, and they basically see guys such as yourself with an $8,000 .22 rifle, $10,000 worth of gear, and we're like, okay, the amount of gear that they're bringing to the match is worth more than the car they brought it in. So does somebody basically, how much does someone need to budget and is there anything they can do about it? Because, like, okay, you can go shoot a Glock match or something like that. Or, like, for example, you can be a USPSA gun gamer at the top of your game, but you can be a top level shooter shooting the production division with, let's say, a $2,000 high end CZ is all you need in order to be really, really, really competitive. Can you get anywhere near that cheap with PRS or NRL, and whether it's center fire or rim fire?
it really depends on what your goals are, but getting started, say, hey, I want to go to a match, I want to go buy a gun, I want to get started, right? So it depends on what you're doing, right? Me, I would give the advice of if when you buy into the sport, buy something that has an upgrade path, right? Because you're gonna end up upgrading it. So let's talk center fire. Go buy a Bagara B14, right? Or a Bagara Premier, right? It's in a decent enough stock and it's a decent enough rifle to get you started in centerfire PRS, right? So, what's your $800 for a rifle? Maybe you need a scope base or your $900, and then you need decent glass. You can spend anywhere from $300 to $3,000 or $5,000. But let's just say for someone starting out, we go pick something in the $300 to $600 range. So now you have a $1,200 rifle, right? So now you got to go buy some ammo for it, right? So you go buy some ammo, and so you're go buy 200 rounds. So you're another $300 down. So now you're approaching probably you're crushing close to $1,500, $1,600, and then you're like, okay, I need a shooting bag. So you go buy a shooting bag. Now you're close to $2,000, whatever, right? That will get you started. But what I would suggest to people is go shoot a match, go borrow a rifle, go see what you like, and then just buy your rifle, buy your scope, make sure it has exposed turrets, so elevation turrets and mill turrets. Sorry, elevation windage turrets, and then make sure you can pick MOA or mill. But if you're going to shoot PRS, I would just say mill. 90% of people shoot mill. That's in the scope. And then from there, go to the matches. All of these guys, like I, man, sometimes I feel bad. I show up with an extremely expensive rifle, and I have an extremely expensive kit that I wheel around with me. But I'm willing to share my kit with anyone who needs it. Right. So last match I went to, you can see back here, I have a tripod. I call it the command station. Every member in my squad used this command station to either RO or to run the squad or use some piece of equipment off of it. Same with the shooting bag that's over my other shoulder. So if you're just getting started, all you need is a gun, a bipod, and a scope, and then go out and make friends. Everyone will share gear with you, and that's the best way to do it. Go try gear before you start buying, or you go down the rabbit hole of buying and trying to resell, and it gets really expensive really fast.
So, behind you, I'm going to leave this here. So you have like your command center. I basically see a spotter. I see binoculars. I see a kestrel. There it looks like a timer of some sort. And then obviously, okay, you have like a whole bunch of different bags and stuff. So what's actually needed? How would somebody actually use it during the course of a match? Or like, do they actually need any piece of gear that you have there?
Do we want to talk? Do we want to talk beginner or do we want to talk where I've ended up?
Let's talk beginner. Let's
Okay.
talk beginner.
Okay, so let's talk beginner. You're going to need, besides your rifle, right? So you have your rifle, you have your scope, you've got your ammo, and you have a bipod of some sort, right? That gets you going. Now you need a shooting bag for rear support or for unsupported off of rocks or ladders or tires or whatever, right? So this bag has become my favorite. Unfortunately, it's an exclusive to JC Still. So shout out to Jake Vibert. If you guys don't know who Jake Vibert is, he's an okay shooter in PRS. But this is a 1+1 medium heavy fill. It weighs about 5 pounds. I use it for rear support. I use it for front support. So you got rifle, bipod, scope base, shooting bag. Perfect. That's what you need out of the gate. Now you need some type of ballistic calculator. Kestrels are expensive. I went 5 or 6 years before I broke down and bought one. I was using geoballistics or applied ballistics on my phone. I know a lot of guys like Sherlock. I know it's not available now. Thank you, Vladimir Putin.
It's not Vladimir Putin. It's the U.S. sanctions.
Yeah, but they wouldn't have sanctioned him. They wouldn't have sanctioned Russia for no reason. So, but anyways, we'll go off that.
Complex.
Sherlock, that's what it is. Sherlock.
Strellock.
Which you can still find it, and if you have an old Android, you can still install it. Guys like it. I'm a geoballistics fan. I've always been a geoballistics fan.
What about Hornady Fordoff?
Hornady Fordoff is probably the best ballistic calculator out there, especially if you can run it. Especially if you can run it on a computer. It's not a ballistic calculator, more as a like a full-blown ballistics engine, meaning it requires more processing power than like the Kestrel unit can give it. So if you're going to run Fordoff, don't buy the Fordoff Kestrel. Buy the app and run it on your phone, because the Kestrel hardware is not good enough to run Fordoff. And I've only learned this recently. I was watching one of Hornady's podcasts, and I've been talking to a few guys. Fordoff is an extremely, extremely powerful tool. I wouldn't recommend it for a beginner. I'd recommend geoballistics for a beginner, or AB ballistics. So, and AB ballistics stands for applied ballistics. And that's what I'd recommend. So we got rifle, gun, scope, bipod, shooting bag, and some type of ballistic calculator. Why do you need a ballistic calculator? Because without it, how are you going to know what to hit at long range, right? This is it. And I saw a quote yesterday that someone was like, if you're shooting and verifying dope during a match, you're disqualified. This is a at the moment skill set. Meaning, can you take your rifle, look at the course of fire, and execute? Right? Believing in your gun and your gear and your calculations. So, though, that's where I would start, right? And then from there, you need some type of rangefinder, right? Rangefinder binos or rangefinder handheld rangefinder, some type of rangefinder, and that's basically what you need to get started.
Okay.
Now, a
Right.
caveat there is I'd add a chronograph, but now you're $6,000 or $7,000
Okay.
deep,
So
depending on what you're doing.
going back to the chronograph, and not the chronograph, the rangefinder. So here's the thing: you showed a matchbook for that match. So why would you need a rangefinder if the distances are known? Or I know, for example, NRL Hunter, there it's not a known distance. They basically send you out there. But if someone's just gonna go shoot NRL or PRS match where they can go walk the stages the day before and things like that, do you actually need it?
Here's my mantra: trust but verify.
Okay.
I verify every distance. Every distance. So once you get 3 or 4 stages in, you'll know pretty quick if you're like, yeah, I can put it away. So when I hosted our when I hosted my national 2-day NRL match, the biggest compliment that we got is I didn't see a single rangefinder on day 2 because we're both shooting the guy that put it on with me. We're both shooters, so we ranged from the target to the shooter, and then from the shooter to the target, and we ranged them back and forth with 3 or 4 different high
Okay.
end rangefinders. And on day 2, I didn't see a single rangefinder. Our distances were gold, but not everyone is like that. Or sometimes people have cheaper rangefinders. Sometimes they have more expensive ones. Sometimes they range the target or the guy standing behind it, or trust but verify. Trust but verify.
Okay.
And if you don't have, and here's the caveat to this: if you're going to shoot in a group of guys, I guarantee you someone has this equipment, right? So the necessary equipment, you can kind of end it at the ballistic calculator. Now, a chronograph is extremely nice to have, but you're going to actually figure out your speeds by doing some math and shooting at distances and different things. But yeah, that's the biggest thing, right?
All right. So then the other one is, so on the gear side of it. Okay, so then you have shooting tripods. Is it a requirement? Is it not a requirement? So I mean, you basically were mentioning NRL stage where somebody shoots off of a tripod, then they go to the ground, then they go back to the tripod. And now I even see tripods not just even for supporting the front of the gun, but also tripods and bipods for supporting the back of the gun. So you now have 2 pieces of equipment there.
Yeah, so I have so in the NRL 22, you are not allowed to use a tripod for rear support.
Okay.
This stage has a tripod in it because they're trying to introduce it to people. Because honestly, if I showed up to NRL 22 and there was a bunch of new shooters there and I used my tripod, it's an unfair advantage to me.
Hmm.
I don't really use a tripod a ton because I've learned what's called kind of free recoil, and I've learned to shoot without it. I use kind of the concept of one bag. Um, the more you can simplify things, the faster you can go in the sport. But it's really unfair. If I know how to use a tripod for rear support, because it's a practice skill, I can hand you a tripod
Mm-hmm.
and I can show you exactly how to do it. But if you've never done it, you might as well not use it. Like you have to
Okay.
practice rear support with a tripod. And even as much as I shoot, I don't practice it near as much, and I'm not very good with it. I only use it in very extreme circumstances. Um, and we'll get into that because I have certain stuff on the table behind me that I use specifically for
Okay.
situations like that.
So are
But
tripods used just for supporting yourself, or are you actually shooting off of the tripods? And in those cases, is it dictated that, for example, like you might have a stage description where shoot off of a tripod, in which case I guess it would be a stage prop. I'm not sure if it's the same concept would apply to um the rifle world, where in which case, if it's a stage prop, then they're already supplying one, or in what situations would it be that it would be an advantage to shoot off of a tripod? And wouldn't they basically say, shoot it off of a tripod?
I mean, it really depends on reading the course of fire,
Okay.
and you can
And I guess
kind
this
of
is the gaming
game.
aspect of
You
it.
you can game things. Like I shot out of a dump trailer once, where it's really nice to have a really long legs, right? So you bend the tripod where the two legs
Mm-hmm.
two legs go forward, and you bend the back leg to go straight back. So you put it under your arm and you set your gun on the top of it.
So you're
Guess
using
what?
it as like a very tall bipod.
It's like a very tall table or bipod, right?
Okay.
I've also seen, hey, we had to shoot off the top of one. They're like, you have to clip into the tripod and shoot off the top of it. You know what I did? I laid it flat on the ground. I spread eagled the legs and I shot it prone. Well, guess what? You never said I couldn't lay the tripod down, right? You said shoot off the top of it. So I laid it down. You know, you spread eagle the legs. Now you're this eye off the ground and you get right up behind it and off you go. Like, so there's some gaming aspect for sure.
Okay.
But a lot of the stages aren't really meant for a tripod on the
Okay.
front. It's all rear support, or it's for hauling all your crap around
Okay.
like this, right? And I know friends, and I have friends. They carry two tripods. They carry a quick deploy tripod, which is inverted legs, right? Because
Yep.
some match directors are making you deploy on the clock because they're trying to take away the pay to win aspect of the game, right?
And they just created more pay to win.
Well, yeah, they did. They did. There's a couple companies that make them now, and
Yep.
it's everything is freaking pay to win. It's the way it is. But that being said, I've seen some very low key shooters beat everybody with
Yeah.
very basic stuff like Harris bipods, factory guns. I've seen some crazy things. So it
So I guess
doesn't like
basically,
you can only buy your way so far.
if somebody wants to gear race and game it, they can, but it's still a shooting match. So I mean, it's still going to be about your skills and calling the wind and all of that stuff.
I mean, what it really does, it comes down to there's certain gear that you can
Or it's
maximize.
an excuse to buy more shit.
Yeah, well, but there's like certain gear to maximize,
Okay.
right? Like to put yourself on a level playing field, right? So NRL 22, I have a MPA Matrix with a Voodoo 360 with a 23-inch 1.2 taper barrel. My gun balances perfectly. I don't ever have to hold my gun. My gun holds itself on whatever prop I put it on. Guess what? Your gun doesn't do that. You're at a disadvantage, right? So I can buy myself to a point where my gun will act just like all of the other top guys with their guns,
Mm-hmm.
right? It perfectly. And then when I say it balances, I mean you put it on the barricade, and I go like this, and I don't have to put any interaction in the back of my body. Like I could shoot it like this. Like the gun sits perfectly still. So and with that big bag, it sinks into it enough that you don't like no interaction with the gun. You just put your hand on top and go click, 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 click. Like we're talking like 1.5 second part times. If you're not having to, move targets, it's just like,
Yeah.
and it's a definite advantage. And people will make fun of me, but I have a 16-pound CZ 457, and if you shoot it on the bench, you can watch it jump in the air.
Hmm.
So my 20-pound Voodoo that has a massive 23-inch straight taper barrel, it doesn't jump, it doesn't move. So again, you're eliminating things, right? So you can buy yourself to a certain position, but if I don't have good trigger control or breathing techniques, or I don't have the experience of shooting off of a tank trap, that gun's not going to do me any good, right? It's the whole Indian versus the arrow thing, right? So
So
yeah.
when it comes to firearms themselves, what is the bare minimum for the types of guns and what the gun can deliver?
You're looking for a half MOA gun.
Half.
Yeah, you're looking for a half MOA gun. So
Half. But most of the production guns that you even mentioned are not necessarily guaranteed or might not be capable of doing that. And basically, I would say, well, a lot of it is really going to be ammo dependent as well. So now you're saying that people have to hand load?
No, you can test ammo in your gun.
Okay.
So
Hmm.
that's the cheapest ammo you can buy. It shoots .35 out of my Ruger factory rifle.
Interesting.
So you test the ammo to your gun, right? And what you can do is you get 100 rounds to your gun, and then you can paint with a Sharpie. You paint the tips of your bullets, right? And then you go shoot paper at 500 yards, and the bullet will actually leave the residue of the color on the paper as it goes through it. So then you can go out and you can measure the different groups. And I did this in 2016 with a buddy of mine. We shot an Accuracy International against a 6.5 Ruger Precision when they were brand new. And the Ruger Precision outshot the custom Accuracy International on all ammo types except for one. The Accuracy International loved the 143 Hunter bullet, and it shot a .33 at 500 yards. Whereas the Ruger, everything else the Ruger did, it shot,
Are we talking about 3-shot groups or 5-shot groups?
5-shot group. Dude, there's no such thing as 3-shot groups. It's all 5-shot groups. So, I mean, you can one, you can use a barrel tuner. Two, you can either hand load or you can just play with the different factory loads, different barrels, different things, right? But that being said, a Ruger American with the right ammo will hold half MOA. A Bagara B14 will hold half MOA. A Tika CRT will hold half MOA. There are plenty of factory rifles out there that will hold half MOA. Now, the Aero Solus.
Yep.
Talk about kind of a really good bang for your buck, especially if you don't use one of their barrels.
So you're just talking about just using one of our actions?
Yeah. Yeah, but freaking everyone their short action Savage short shank. You can order one from anyone and their mom. Like, you can get whatever for those. Some of their barrels they're iffy, right? The Ballistics Advantage makes good barrels, but they're just getting into the bolt gun game, right?
Yes.
So you can go get a known barrel from whatever, right? The Daniel Defense Delta 5, same thing, right? They built that gun for PRS production class. That's why it does what it does. But like the Ruger Precision Custom Shop, man, that gun shoots lights out. And so does the normal Rugers. The Ruger Americans do the same thing. So you can get factory guns that will do what you want. And in the rimfire world too, right? Rimfire is even more particular. You have to match the lot and the ammo type to your gun. So you have to do, I think you have to do more ammo testing in rimfire than I've ever done in centerfire.
Cool.
So,
all right. So somebody gets the gun. They're going to get an optic that's going to suit them for whatever the distances they're going to be shooting out to.
And it needs to be exposed turrets. It needs to be turrets matching the reticle, Christmas tree reticle, if at all possible. And honestly, it needs to be a 3-18 or a 4-26, or it needs to be a little higher magnification.
You mean? Well, you call 3-18, or like that you call that higher magnification. I was about to say, so does everybody need like a 36 power or like a 40 power scope?
No, you typically shoot PRS on 15 to 20. I shoot rimfire on 25 because I have a red dot on top of my gun.
Okay.
So I don't have to look for the target. It's a red dot, down, 25 power, pull trigger. Nice. So a lot of my friends are really good at PRS, and I haven't shot a centerfire match in over a year. So I've been out of the game a little bit. But their side acquisition is good enough that when they drop down to 18 or 20 power, now if you have like multiple targets you're engaging in a line, then you zoom out. So then you can see the string of targets, right? So there's different, and you learn this with experience. And I still make the mistake of being too zoomed in or not as zoomed in enough. Or whatever.
How big of targets are you actually shooting at those matches? Because I mean, like, what I will say is, like, so you go out to, and it doesn't surprise me anymore. And I will say, when I first got into this, I was like, more magnification. And when we were at the Ruger Media event where we were shooting the Ruger Precisions in 6.5 PRC, 300 PRC, and the Hawkeye in 6.5 PRC, the scopes on there were all the Leupold Mark 5s, 5 to 25s. And I'm like, okay, well, this is going to be fine up to like 600 yards, but like, you mean we get to shoot a mile or more? We need more magnification than 25 power. And then by the end of the exercise, I'm like, yeah, 25 is fine. I mean, like, okay, only past a mile. It's like, okay, it's like I can possibly use like a little bit more. And now it's like when I go to like this media day at the range during SHOT Show, like the furthest targets that they had set out were 960 yards, and you're getting behind these guns after another shooter, and you're like, whoa, what the hell is this person doing? Like very zoomed in, like, so the scopes there were like tangent thetas, ZCOs. There's a bunch of scopes that were like 30, like 25 power and up, and all of every single one of the guns I get behind, the scope was doped up all the way to the highest magnification. It's like, you don't need it, just like zoom out. It's like 970 yards, I don't need more than 15 or 16, because that generally, I mean, like, you're not shooting a bench rest match. It's like, it's not going to be the difference in inches. As long as you hit it dead center, you're good. So
As long as you hit the target, you can graze it, you can nick it, you can center punch it. Doesn't matter. A hit's a hit.
yeah. All right. So okay. So like Ryan bending ballistics. I was gonna get for all the comments after this, but he knows how to blow smoke up my ass and put me on a pedestal. Now, if you can hit a standard IPSC at 1,550 yards with a Grendel, you're completely good to shoot a PRS match. So Ryan was gracious enough to invite me to his local range after I did a media tour at another gun company in the area. And my goal, so it was basically my Ruger American and 6.5 Grendel stock barreled action. My goal of it was to hit 1,000. We hit it on the second shot. I'm like, okay, well, we got more ammo to burn. Okay, let's just see and stretch it out. And so we went 1,550 yards on an IPSC size plate with stock barreled action, Ruger American Predator, off of a tripod, because there's no way in hell I was going to get on the ground in order to shoot that, because it was achy and disgusting and stuff. So yeah, it's fun. I mean, it's actually amazing. I get, you know what it is? It's like, I guess I'm trying to encourage people to kind of go out and shoot matches, because until you do, it's almost like, well, let's put it this way. Until the Comp Expo event, like the furthest I've ever shot a 22 was 50 yards, because it's like, okay, like how the hell can you shoot if it's like you can bat a 22 out of the air at 100 yards, and like it seems like it's completely ridiculous. To now, it's like if I'm shooting inside 300 yards, I'm not even going to bring out any center fires. I'm just going to have fun with rim fire because it's just more fun. And like hearing it ding at 300 yards with a 22 is cool. And so, I mean, the furthest I shot 22 was 617 yards, and it was just awesome. And I think the same thing with center fire. It's like, well, like I love going into a gun store and somebody saying, oh, it's like I need a rifle for long range shooting, and I'm thinking of like either like 300 Win Mag or 300 PRC or 338 Lapua. I don't know what to get. And by now I'm educated enough to ask the question, what's your definition of long range shooting? Because a lot of people, they would say like, okay, like, well, I want to go shoot past 100 yards, so maybe like 500 yards. I'm like, you don't need anything like anywhere near that. And I think people have like this misconception that you need some magical gun or something in order to be able to shoot 1,000 yards, and you don't. I mean, like even like a 308 or like a 6.5 Creedmoor right now, you're easily be able to handle 1,000 yards. So
You can do it with a 223.
yeah,
There's
absolutely.
there are a bunch of shooters in PRS that shoot a 223. Now you're at a little bit of a wind disadvantage, and you know it was at an impact, but if you're shooting within 800 yards, that
Yeah.
223 is really good, and you can get it all the way out to 1,000 yards. It just those plates get big and heavy, and they don't move as much. You have to have an experienced spotter.
Yeah.
That's just the caveat. You got to have, or you
So
got to
here,
have you got to have a light on it or an experienced spotter.
so where the question is heading. So like, okay, like how far are the targets and
Any
how big
ballistics, you must be in the east. PRS
he
matches
is?
should go at least at 1,200 yards.
All right, so let's discuss this question. So rimfire matches and center fire matches. Um,
Hey, we
what
never
type of
answered your target size question.
Yeah, so basically what's the size of the targets and how far can someone expect to shoot them?
Okay, so typically, the way you do target size is it expands with distance, right? So at 100 yards, one MOA is an inch. At 200 yards, it's 2 inches. 300 yards, it's whatever, right? It goes out. So typically, it depends on the stage. If there's a single target and little movement, your target's going to be a little smaller. If there's a lot of movement and more mechanics, you'll have a bigger target. Typically, the targets are 2 to 3 MOA. So they're usually decently sized. And if you have a lot of movement and a lot of technical skills, they could be all the way up to 4 MOA in size. So meaning you could have an 8-inch target at 400 yards. No, 4
So even
MOA would
bigger.
be 16 inches.
Yep.
Be 16 inches at 400 yards, right? That's a huge target at 400 yards. So
Okay. Now, is this for 22 or are we talking
no,
just
that's
center fire?
for center fire. Oh,
Okay.
the same rules apply, right? So for like PRS 22, you'll have like between 35 and 45 yards, you'll have KYL racks, and they go all the
Okay.
way down to a quarter inch. Like the target's like this big, right? It's just the stem. And then they work their way out. I mean, I think the targets at 100 yards are around 3 inches.
Okay.
So the MOA size is 2.9. So they put a 3 MOA target out at 100 yards.
And that's basically for NRL 22. That's definitely that I guess like okay, so there's I guess different type of matches where there's
Yeah,
long
but
range 22.
they all kind of follow the same target size.
Okay.
Yeah, they all kind of follow the same target size
All
because
right.
there's only so much you can do. So I didn't realize this until I took a long range shooting class a couple years ago. Is why the 1,000-yard milk jug challenge is so awesome. I always thought it was stupid until I actually took the class and I figured it out. So at 1,000 yards, your standard deviation, your bullet pattern is actually bigger than the milk jug. So you might do everything right and still miss the target just because of the pattern your bullets are going to make as they go out that far. The cone, right? The cone gets bigger as it goes out. So, so match directors try and keep the target sizes inside those cones, so you're not missing because your bullet is landing in its expected cone size. Does that make sense?
Okay. Or you mean the target is going to be bigger than the cone size. So the cone
The
size will be
target's going to be bigger than the cone size, right?
okay. So it's going to be about your skills as the shooter rather than the standard deviation of just the wind and the bullet. Well, not the wind, but like the actual
Yeah,
bullet
just the bullet, right?
dispersion.
So
Yeah.
when I was sitting there watching, and I helped like 40 guys shoot at this milk jug, and some of their guns, it's like, hey, no change, 2-3 shots, and then boom, the fourth one hits it, right? So the whole premise behind shooting the milk jug in 10 rounds is you're almost guaranteed always to get one of those 10 rounds to hit the center of the cone, right? So, and you can make those cones smaller by good ammo and good barrels and good fundamentals, right? But like,
Okay.
the cones are kind of what they are.
All right. So matches 22 or center fire, is someone going to be just primarily doing one type of matches and not the other? Are the skills transferable? And where should someone get started?
I would tell people to get started in 22 matches. It's just it's more affordable, and there are arguments here. One of my good buddies, the guy that builds most of my guns, argues the other way because he's like 22 will build bad habits
Hmm.
because there's no recoil. So when they go to centerfire guns, it screws them up. They flinch, recoil. They're not used to the muzzle blast, all sorts of things. So I came from centerfire to rimfire, and it was like, man, this is amazing. Don't have to wear ear pro. There's no muzzle blast. There's no recoil. So I mean, there's a learning curve between the two. That being said, pick the one that works in your area. 22 is more conducive to smaller ranges, and is gaining much bigger a following, right? So you can buy 500 rounds of a match grade 22 for $80.
Mm-hmm.
Well, 500 rounds of like a 6 Creedmoor or 6.5, it's going to cost you $700 or $800.
Okay.
Right. So it really depends on what cost it is. Also, you aren't going to shoot a 22 barrel out, whereas like a 6.5 barrel, you've got 3,000 rounds, and then you got to swap barrels, and it's just there's a lot of cost to the centerfire stuff, and you have to have bigger ranges and different things. So if you want to get started in the precision rifle world, start with the 22, but then buy a 223 and go shoot. Go shoot on a range, or at least get some practice with a bigger caliber as well, so you don't develop bad habits of not having to deal with recoil. And 223 is cheap enough, and you can find good enough match ammo for not too expensive that you can get the best of both worlds. Okay. Or yeah. So that's just kind of where it's at, I guess.
Interesting. Definitely very, very interesting. So start with the 22 if you can. But here's the thing, though. So, I mean, obviously with centerfire, you can find a bunch of factory-ready production centerfire rifles, such as the Ruger Precision Custom Shop. And I mean, you have like the whole, so as I understand it, you have the whole production class where it's $2,500, and there's a whole bunch of companies who are making guns specifically for that. But when it comes to 22s, I mean, like, you are a little bit bougie. I mean, I've played with your gun. It is probably more than I
That's
think.
the
Like,
old gun. You should play with the new one.
Is that even more bougie?
Oh, it's 4 times bougier.
Okay, so is there a affordable gun that somebody can go buy for under $500 or so in order to go shoot NRL 22 matches, or like are they just going to be cheap?
So the guy that won nationals last year used a factory Tikka T1X.
Okay,
$450 rifle. So I mean, there is a great category. The 22 has a phenomenal selection. At the bottom, you have the Ruger Precision. Oh, sorry, you have the Bagara BMR. Right, its stock's a little lacking, but whatever. You have the Ruger Precision, and then you have the Tikka T1X, and then you have the CZ457, and then you have the Bagara B14, and then if you're super bougie, you can throw in the Anschutz. I'm not sure what model number it is, but all of those guns are good enough to come out and compete with out of the gate. And some of them have upgraded stocks and chassis and things. Like you can find a 457 in a ACC MDT chassis from the factory. You can find it in a Manor stock from the factory. I'm trying to think. The Bagara comes in a decent stock.
Well, now we have. So I know we were talking about it 2 years ago, the Ruger Precision Rimfire, how it came in that plastic chassis. And now you have real aftermarket metal, honest to goodness chassis for the.
Shout out to John Sharps, buddy.
Yes. So they listened and they actually did that for you.
You know what, Benny Ballistics? You can buy accuracy with a Voodoo. I've seen it.
All right. Chris Clovertech, thank you very much for joining. Thank you for the super chat. Here's a question. Have you seen the new Hammerly Straight Pull 22 Walfers finally pushing now? interesting. Looking forward to spending some time with that one. Now, Chris, do you have one of those, um, or what do we know about this rifle? And actually, I do want to ask you this. So, along the same lines with the straight pull, so about 2 years ago, when Savage came out with the Impulse, they're basically saying, "Hey, you know what? This action is going to be quicker. Obviously, it's you have similar blazer actions, but it seems like every video I see, people are still using your typical um, two lug 90s, three lug 60s."
Sorry, was that question to me?
Yeah, so basically, like, okay, we are talking about like the Hammerly straight pull 22, and I know basically a lot of like the Olympic ancients and stuff like that for like the paddle ones.
They're freaking sweet.
Okay, so here's the question: on the center fire side, we had Savage, which did the impulse, the straight pull, and then you have like the blazer actions, things like that. So, is there a place for those? Does it actually save any
No,
time? Okay.
and here's why: there's no aftermarket support for them,
Okay.
and PRS is a money game. I mean, it really is. I hate to say it. You could, yes, you can show up with a factory rifle and you can compete, but it's really PRS is so much about how smooth and how fast that you can run the action without tipping your gun. The
Okay.
straight pull on the Savage is a very interesting concept. I think they could get it there, but it's a Savage. I don't want to really dog on Savage, but when you're shooting in the PRS world, it's a Savage. Now there are the production guys. There's at least there's one shooting a Savage. There's one shooting a Ruger custom shop. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and they do decently well, or they do extremely well. Sorry, they're top end shooters, right? Doug, what's his name? Doug Cohn, and
The Koenig.
I'm
He
trying to
shoots
remember
Ruger.
the Savage production shooter that I've seen. But again, he's Ryan Hayes, I think. No, not Ryan Hayes. It's
No clue.
whatever. He's here in the state, but he does well. The straight pull is an interesting concept. I just haven't seen it in the PRS world, right? Guys are buying custom rifles, or they're building custom rifles, or they're buying an MPA, or some of these companies that offer production class, which are basically like they offer production class rifles, but they're aftermarket and they're extremely nice.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and shoots is a great option. Browning makes the T-bolt, which I know they're working on it to make it more NRL PRS friendly, meaning it runs a little smoother
Mm-hmm.
because that gun is amazing.
Oh, that reminds me. I just got the Winchester Expert Rimfire thing, which takes the T-bolt basis, but it's a Turkish gun. Okay, I digress.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't see a ton of Savages in PRS. You do see them in the ELR stuff
Okay.
because
Yep.
they make they make decent long
Well, I
actions
would say
and they're
Bentrust.
well, you see them in both. You see them in ELR and
Yeah.
you see them in Bentrust.
Okay.
It's again the Delta Defense 5 was built for a production class rifle, but it's ugly. The stock doesn't meet everything that you need, and if guys are going to spend that much money, you might as well just go have a custom gun built. It's just what it is.
Okay. All right. So, what I want to do, let's actually go back through and answer some of these questions as we start wrapping up. So, I will read them out and get them in there. Oh, so actually, Ryan, I'm signed up for several so far. ELR Pro Am being the first one with Southpaw Outdoorsman as my pro. All right, so here's actually the thing. So now we're talking about, okay, you're mentioning that you don't necessarily need to be in amazing fit or shape, but aren't there some PRS type matches where I think it was like the Vortex one in the desert, but I remember like one of the guys where you have to lug all of your stuff around with you and you have to hike with all of your gear. And
And
along
it's
the same lines,
the Vortex Extreme Challenge.
okay.
It's a buddy match, and it's yeah, it's I would kind of throw it under like a sniper challenge match.
Okay.
Think Army Rangers. You're gonna ruck. You're gonna run up and down mountains, and I think it might be timed between the stations. I
Yes.
don't think there's any land nav involved, but the guys pack extremely light for it because it's a hike, and
Okay.
it's big. I think you
Now,
cover like 15 miles in 2 days. Like it's no joke.
now here's a question. Is there, so I know in Eastern Europe and other parts of the world, sniper style shooting is actually becoming quite popular. Where basically you're gonna have either, like, I mean, in some cases you do walk, in other cases, I would say you have targets at unknown distances where you have to figure those out. Which almost it's almost like a combination of NRL Hunter, which is designed to replicate a shooting stage. But are there those type of matches in the United States, or is NRL Hunter and PRS kind of like well, NRL Hunter the closest style to that?
No, I don't think there's any like official organization that runs them as like big matches. But yeah, there are sniper challenge matches. I think American Sniper Association. I think they put on one every year.
Okay.
It's open to. I can't remember if it's open to civilians. It might be. I think it's open to civilians, but you'll see a lot of like Canadian and Australian and German Army
Okay.
snipers and stuff teams. They come and compete in the event and different things like that. But like I think in the Vortex Extreme Challenge, some of the stages are finding the target, ranging the target, talking with your shooter spotter combo, and
Mm-hmm.
and in some PRS matches you'll see where they'll mix it in a little bit. Like they'll do blind stages where you don't know what you're
Okay.
getting into until you show up. So it's kind of to the discretion of the match directors, but um, they kind of mix it up, yeah. Like, and there's so many matches. If you guys ever want to shoot like a centerfire PRS match and you've never shot one before, go look up the Guardian charity series. They do like 5 or 6 matches. Funnest match I've ever shot, and most of the people are new shooters, and then you
Hmm.
get very experienced shooters like Frank Galley and some of the really good ones in the industry that show up, and it's basically like a training session, and it's all for charity. So there's no prize table. You buy raffle tickets,
Mm-hmm.
and they give away some amazing stuff. So you go buy raffle tickets, and you just have a good time, and you can coach each other on the clock. And
Hmm.
then the second day of the match, they take the worst shooter and they give him to the best shooter, and they go down like so second worst,
Oh wow.
second best, and they do a team match so you can train up and do different things.
Very cool.
Yeah, like there's just so many. You just have to start Googling, get on Facebook. There's a billion groups.
All right. So
So
James is looking for a backup for his medium bag with similar weight and dimensions. Just doesn't know if there's something new and sexy out there, or even if I need it for prototype or testing.
I don't have any desire at the moment to make bags, but MDT just bought Warhorse, so I would not be surprised if MDT drops a whole bunch of new stuff.
Okay. Uh,
But
Markman had a
he also mentioned the peanut bag. I want to try the peanut bag as well, but I've stopped changing my gear, and I use the same gear in the same way, and my scores have exponentially increased. So I use this is the only bag I use. Pick one and don't change your bag. Just learn to use it.
okay.
So this is what I
What
use.
Armageddon game changer? I've heard of so Armageddon gear. I know a lot of people use it. Any thoughts on it?
Well, decide if you like the schmedium or if you like the 1+1. Now, I also carry a very lightweight bag in case I have to carry my gun or do something dumb. But usually I pick this up with my rifle. So
Okay.
25 pounds, rifle, 5-pound bag, and I'm moving it between props and stuff.
Okay. Very
So
cool.
just get
Uh,
comfortable with your bag. Whichever bag you choose, there's a billion of them out there.
Now, obviously, you are one of the owners of Anarchy Outdoors. Do you guys carry bags and soft goods on your website?
Yeah, we carry. I think we mostly carry the full size, the OG Game Changer, the pint size, and we're starting to carry the schmedium. We're going to start carrying the schmedium in heavy fill.
Okay.
So
All right. So Aaron ain't lying. ELR ain't cheap. I suppose so. Um,
not when you're using copper turned bullets, baby. Copper solids, $3 a bullet. That doesn't include the rest of the
ooh.
components.
Ooh. If you're not having fun at a match, you're taking it too serious. Everyone is there to have fun and enjoy time with friends across the country. I would say, you know what, at a local match, I would say absolutely. But I do know, so for example, when I was the sponsor coordinator for USPSA Nationals and some of the other matches, um, sorry, I was the USPSA sponsor coordinator. I was an RO for Nationals and I helped him out a little bit, but I was the sponsor coordinator for the regionals for the area matches. And there, like I said, if you go and see the super squads, a lot of the guys there, I mean, like let's put this way, and this kind of goes in the conversation. Okay, well, what's a sponsored shooter and what is their job? Is it to shoot well and win matches, or is it there to be there and be a great brand ambassador and talk to the other shooters and kind of be that connection point between the company and the shooters? But there are a lot of like the super squad shooters who are there and like I said, we just want to win. Don't talk to me. It's like you're below me. It's like you like don't even come close to me. Um, so I mean, would you say it does happen in bigger PRS matches as well, where it's not
Oh, oh,
it's work for people?
for sure. So typically, and I talk to a lot of sponsored shooters. I sponsor a few shooters. I sponsor some teams, different things. Typically, when they build, like a company builds a team, they're going to build one or two superstar winners, and then
Mhm.
they're going to add the rest as like brand ambassadors, meaning they're just awesome, nice people. So the two or three that are just winning, that's all the publicity. Look at us, we have a winning team, and then they use the other 4 or 5 guys as just pure good guys. And you get a mix of some of the very top shooters that are sponsored. They just are real assholes, and they don't really talk to people. And a lot of brands try and steer away from that, but it's also hard to argue with a winner, right?
Yeah,
Sometimes
but here's
sometimes
basically
companies only care about the trophies.
but then here's the thing though. I mean, like when you're this is where to kind of working with the brand side of things. If you're a PRS shooter and you see the top winners of your local match or your regionals or the entire series, they're sponsored by Bergara and Athlon or whoever. I mean, are you gonna go out and buy their stuff, or do you basically realize that hey, they're just sponsored by this person, and that person is just a gifted and talented shooter, and they would win if you give them a basic Savage or Ruger?
So PRS is a very and same with IPSA and different things, is a very small group of people.
Yeah.
So and I know Morgan King and I know some of the top shooters personally. Um, everyone everyone does what Morgan does because Morgan wins, and he never asked to be sponsored, and people have just poured on the gravy, right? And it's still funny today because he doesn't wear a jersey. He still wears a cowboy shirt with little patches on it, right? It's Morgan is one of the coolest dudes, but I watched him for a couple of years just be a little like, leave me alone, don't talk to me, get angry, argue with the ROs. But
Hmm.
but now he's gotten to the level of just a pure good dude. He'll help you out. He'll train you. You come off a stage and he'll be like, you should consider X, Y, and Z next time you shoot. Like just a good dude. And he would win no matter what you gave him. But I mean, those are the types of guys that everyone wants to find for their team. Problem is there's not a lot of them out there.
But here's the thing, though. I mean, like,
Once you start winning and getting sponsored, your mindset changes a little bit.
but here's the thing, though. Like, I mean, like these people. I mean, like the other competitors and the other people who are watching them, or if somebody's watching a video, I guess we can break down into two different things. So if you see a person shooting well who's sponsored by a certain company, are you gonna be more likely to buy that rifle or that scope because they're sponsored by them, or you basically know in your head, well, he's just sponsored by them and that's what it is, but it's not really going to have an impact on you purchasing those products?
This is a really interesting question, and I would love more feedback than just mine. But prize tables, right?
Yeah.
Everyone likes prize tables. You saw the same thing probably in the handgun world
Yep.
or the sponsored shooters. I don't feel like the prize table gets people to go purchase stuff from the big sponsors. And I don't think guys that are sponsored, unless you genuinely know that that dude is not taking handouts and he's running like hate to use Morgan King as another example, but I tried to give him a pair of UF Pro pants to run.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, my blue jeans work just fine. Right? That's why guys go, like, if Morgan King's running it, guys go
Yep.
out and buy it because they just know he doesn't use anything that doesn't work. And he doesn't ask for sponsorships. And he turns down more sponsorships than he gets.
But he's basically one of a kind.
Yeah, Morgan is one of a kind. Now there are others very similar to him. I have a friend who's been offered multiple sponsorships by multiple companies, but he tells them, no, I don't want to be beholden to anyone.
Yeah.
Right. And if you make a product that I don't like or I have issues with, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. And
Yep.
I know two companies that would sponsor him in a heartbeat if he would allow it. Now he doesn't travel as much as he needs to, and there's a few other caveats to
Yep.
his sponsorship, but he's told several people no just because of different things. And then I know some other ones that, some guys like to be sponsored, some guys don't. It ties you into certain things, different things like that. But like MPA is sponsoring their shooting team is a really good mix of winners and just good people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just kind of the game, right? If you're winning every week, well, you're in the news, no matter if anyone's going to go buy the stuff or not. But you're in the publicity, right? You're generating clicks and views or whatever, right? Eventually, someone's going to buy something, right?
But are they really, though? So I mean, here, and this is okay. So kind of like putting it from the other perspective. I mean, like I've obviously
I
been
think they
involved in.
do. I don't think you capture a huge amount, but I think you capture some.
Well, so I mean, here, let's talk about it from the perspective. Like, okay, if you're a brand and you have a choice between sending out product for a prize table or sponsoring your shooter. So I guess number one is it like MPA. I think it could be a good example of it. So they're sponsored shooters. Are we getting free guns? Are we getting discounted match fees? Or is it like contingency type programs? Like what's the standard in there?
We can talk about that one offline. I'm not about to talk about that on open air. I have too much insider information, and I'm not about to breach that. But it's a mix of everything that you talked about, and it really depends on which shooter it is.
All right. So here's basically kind of like I'll give some light on this. From the brand side. So I mean, like there are brands who are involved. Okay, like, hey, can you sponsor a match, or can you do this or that, or so forth? Or you have shooters who are like reaching out. And like to sponsor a match, it might cost them, let's say, to be a stage sponsor or something. It's like, okay, it could be like upwards of $2,000 in product or cash, things like that. And the question mark is, okay, well, what do you get out of it? And okay, well, how many people are actually going to be there? Okay, well, our match is going to be limited to 100 people. Okay, so basically you're exposing your company to 100 people. And if you're within those niche communities, odds are these people have already heard of your company anyway, and it's not going to be anything new.
Or they already have all the gear that they need.
That's a great point as well. Versus, okay, well, are you trying to expose your brand to a much broader audience and go that? So it's interesting. Like, there's some companies that content creators we can approach and be like, hey, we see that you make a chassis or a rifle, and I think this would be a good fit for the channel. And can you send it to us on loan or this or that? And the companies will be like, like, nah, it's like we just don't, or like we don't need it, or this or that. And I understand there's some brands, especially smaller brands, they legit were backed up and they don't need more sales, but the economy is crashing and all that stuff, and brands generally will want to generate more sales. And here you have content creators who, we might not be the most gifted shooters. We're absolutely not the highest competitors, but we absolutely have significantly more reach, that you can get tens of thousands, or not hundreds of thousands of loyal, passionate people who would be interested in that content. But you have big brands who are dumping a ton of money into sponsoring shooters who don't have an audience outside of their 50 friends at a local match, whose minds will probably not be swayed anyway, unless longer term their scope breaks or their gun breaks or something like that. And yeah, so it's just, it's interesting. It was just an
It's
interesting thought.
no, I like it, and I have insight on both sides of that, right?
Yeah.
Anarchy, because I shoot PRS and I shoot
Mhm.
NRL, we get hit up all the time for sponsorships because people know me and know that I have a passion and I enjoy it.
Yep.
Our company is not built for the demographic of that type of shooter. Now we still sell to them, right? Because we have like products, but if you look at the products that we make, really outside of the precision rimfire stuff, there's not a lot of stuff that translates over into the centerfire competition space.
Mhm.
But we didn't target, that wasn't our target audience. Our target audience for a lot of our stuff is what I call the blue collar shooter. He's buying a Bagara or a Remington or a Savage or a Ruger American, right? And a lot of our products are geared where sending products to YouTubers is much more
Yeah.
beneficial than sponsoring prize tables. And honestly, I sponsor prize tables all the time. And I used to do it for UF Pro, sponsoring for UF Pro
Mhm.
pants because I was trying to get that out in the market. Plus I have good margins and the competitors will wear them. So if you go look, especially out in the West, at pictures at rifle matches, you will see a lot of UF Pro pants. And that has generated quite a bit of sales for us. Um, so we've taken that approach for the last several years. Now we've taken the approach of giving out just gift certificates, and guys come and buy different things from us. But our core products, don't transfer very well into the competition space.
Mhm.
But the competition space is also less than 5,000 shooters
Yeah.
in the PRS centerfire, maybe 10,000 in the rimfire, where there's 300 million gun owners or 100 million gun owners or
Yeah, so that's
however
that's
many hunters.
so
So
that's actually
it's a
interesting.
very interesting perspective that you brought up.
Yeah.
I only sponsor the PRS matches or NRL matches that I have a relationship with. You get, Darren DeBoer out of Oklahoma, or I can't remember if he's out of Oklahoma or not. I'll sponsor him. Area 419 guys put on stuff, I'll sponsor them. If you are Ruth out of Wisconsin, I'll sponsor all of her matches because she's an amazing person. And I don't really care. I'm not going to gain brand recognition, but her opinion is something I value, and she talks to a lot of people, so I support her. And there's a bunch of other matches that I support. I have never supported like the PRS series or like the NRL 22 series because there's no ROI, there's no return on investment. Um,
Yeah.
so
So
I
this is,
cherry pick
yeah.
the match directors that I sponsor, and a lot of it has to do with just my personal relationship with them, knowing it's not going to really drive business.
That's
We've had
actually
much more success in sending products to YouTubers and driving traffic and things via
yeah.
affiliates and just YouTubers in
All right. So
general.
this is interesting. So I mean, like, if you're looking at like just the gun world in general, I think like PRS is like it's the popular, it's the hip thing to do, and NRL Hunter. But it's crazy that you mentioned that the entire total addressable market there is only 5,000 shooters. Meanwhile, so I just looked it up while you were talking. IDPA, International Defensive Pistol Association, is
It's a lot bigger.
27,000, and USPSA is 37,000 members, and you don't actually need to be a member in order to shoot the matches, only if you want to get classified and ranked. And that doesn't even include all the people who are like, I was trying to get the stats for the Glock matches and things like that, which I'm assuming there's probably going to be even more people trying those matches out. So, yeah, I mean, like, it looks like NRL Hunter, I'm sure is even smaller, but PRS, I mean, that's a small market. I mean, that is a small market compared to the 120 to 160 million gun owners in the United States.
I mean, Google how many hunters there are in the United States,
Oh yeah,
and then so let's do the math. So let's say and let's be extremely generous here. Let's say there's 15,000 competitors
yeah,
in all of centerfire, in all of rimfire, F class, everything.
yeah,
And then let's add your 70,000. That's 100. That's still only 100,000 people, right? That are in the
yeah.
competition space.
Interesting turn of events. Um, so yeah, I dig that.
So I'm gonna answer Bending Ballistics' question. So Ruth
Which one?
Solsi in Fredericks, Wisconsin, does the rimfire matches, pure
Okay,
NRL rimfire matches, and she is hosting the championship. Just so you know. So that answers your question there. Oh, sorry, that's
okay.
actually James's question. She's actually hosting the NRL championship in June. So extremely good lady. If you live close to her, go shoot her matches. She's amazing.
Okay. Here's a question for you. So starting in the gas class is normally the best for new competitors, as less people and teaches you better recoil impulses.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it is. You get a lot of new shooters that come and shoot gas because most of them own a gas gun already,
Okay.
right? And a 223 will get you going, or AR-10 or whatever. But yeah,
Okay.
they're good. They're not super common, but you see a lot of new shooters run gas once or twice, and then they switch to a bolt gun.
Okay. My very first match, I only cleaned one stage and dropped like 90 rounds. My first match ever. Okay, so here's an interesting one. 308. 308 is a great caliber to start with for newer match shooters.
I would agree because you have to learn the wind. 308 requires you to learn wind.
Oh, just shoot 6 Creedmoor and get over it.
That's what I shoot. So here's a caveat, though.
Okay.
I shoot a 6 Creedmoor at 2980 or 3,000 feet per second.
Okay.
At 300 yards, I cannot. It's almost impossible to watch your impact and correct. So this is why guys are shooting.
And we talked about that 6.5 Creed.
GTs or 6 Dashers at 2,800 feet per second because you can react to the bullet. So sometimes speed is good, sometimes speed is bad. So,
okay. Or an ELR, you have soft ground and no mirage, and you can't tell what the hell happened.
Or you put that target on a skyline. I may have done that in my match. That target was so mad. I probably shouldn't have done that. I put a target on a ridge that had it has 100-foot draw around it. It goes in like a circle around it. So like the draws come in like this and create like an isthmus, right? And then in the middle of the isthmus, it kind of peaks to a ridge. And I put a target up there at 1040. The wind call was different on every shot. And it wasn't just little, it was right to left and left to right and up and down. And I
You're
watched
such
one of
a
the best
sadist.
shooters in the country hit it twice. And I watched one of the worst shooters in the match hit it 10 times because the wind died. it was probably not the nicest thing to do, but it was awesome to watch guys shoot at that target.
And that's when people start saying that that's bad stage planning.
No, it makes it actually usually it will separate the really good shooters from the not good shooters is what it
Okay.
usually does. But that day it was brutal.
Even after my years of matches, I still struggle to hitting 400 yards. It's beyond frustrating, but it happens. I guess everyone has those days.
Dude, there's something about 400 yards. So when I go out and practice centerfire, I have a 4-inch target at 400 yards. So that's one MOA, and that's the only thing I shoot at. So if you go bending ballistics, if you go out and practice, shoot at really small targets. And then when you shoot at the big ones, they feel better. But there's just something about 400 yards. It's weird. I feel like 600 yards is easier to hit targets.
Yeah. We should do members only. Help Max pick out his loadout for his first match, including outfit. There we go.
Oh, I got an outfit for him.
Nice.
I got your pants right here.
Nice. Now we need a matching shirt with stripes.
We could do tiger stripes.
Nice.
So,
okay. So, we were talking about the one bag. Best advice for new match shooter: get one bag and learn how to use that bag to best ability you can. Be the man with one bag everyone fears.
it's so true. That's such a true statement. Where's bending ballistics based out of? I feel like we need to go shoot.
Kentucky.
Ooh, I could do Kentucky.
Wait, what the hell? It just switched. I lost the time. Okay, here we go. All right, so rifle-wise, Ruger RPR or even Ruger Americans or Remington 700s. I will disagree. So I highly recommend Gas Division for someone to start with. Most gun owners have an AR-10. I would say most gun owners do not have an AR-10. They probably have an AR-15 of some sort, but not an AR-10.
I would almost disagree with that because all the new shooters that I've seen come out that have gas guns all have AR-10s.
What?
Yeah, it's the weirdest thing in the world. I don't know. Well, AR-10s were super popular like when they first came out, and a lot of guys went and bought them and never used them. And they have one in the closet and they bring it out. Yeah, everyone has a loaner rifle. You can always find loaner rifles.
All right, so this is like actually a comment you made earlier. If I had all the money I spent on gear I don't use now, I would be a rich person.
That is a true statement. I have a box. I don't know if you can see it. That cardboard box is the yard sale box. It's full of crap that I bought that I'll never use again.
You should list it in Anarchy Outdoors.
Yeah, that's too much work.
But, Armageddon gear game changer bag is the best. Ooh, bag off.
It has a patent on it. I'm just saying. And it's made by Reezer Technologies. Armageddon has the rights and license to make them. So
okay. All right, so here's actually an interesting one. So the Daniel Defense Delta 5 Pro, we did mention that rifle. I know that was one of the rifles that was made to compete in the PRS production division, but also I guess there's like some military contracts for trying to go with the Delta 5 Pro. I've been humbled, but I've also humbled a lot of people. So what's the take on that? Because I mean, I generally don't see them in my like local retail stores anymore. They used to be quite popular.
What, the Delta 5?
Yeah.
I don't know. I never liked the gun since the day it came out.
All right. A lot of people consider 300 yards long range. Absolutely true. So the kicker is based on NSSF statistics that I read, 90+% of gun owners will never shoot past 100 yards, and a large percentage, I think it was like 60 or 70%, don't even get to shoot 100 yards because their time is at an indoor range. And it almost like bugs me the amount of people who go shoot blast ARs at a 25-yard indoor range. Like, I think it's like the Special Olympics. Yeah, it's like a horrible joke. It's like, you can win, but you're still retarded. It's like, and I think like basically when you're shooting at 25 yards, it's like it doesn't really do much to improve your skills because it's like it covers up a lot of things. Like, okay, now go shoot 300 or 500 yards. That is going to make you be an even more proficient shooter when you go back and shoot 100 yards.
Yep.
Most PRS matches are won with distances at 500 to 700 yards.
If you're from Kentucky, come out west.
We have matches in the East that go to 1,300 yards in the East, but most of the stages are between 500 and 800.
Dude, Ben and Ballistics, you need to come shoot the Hornady PRC match. You ever want to get humbled like humble pie? Come friggin' shoot that match. They have a stage that goes out to 1760.
2 mile. People trying to shoot like 6 dashers and 6 GTs, or like people gonna?
Oh yeah, no, totally.
Are people trying to? Well, it's also out West Coast where it's high and dry, so basically it's like shooting a mile out west is like shooting 1,300 yards in the East Coast at sea level with humidity and like a bazillion.
Oh, it's high. It's high for sure. It is high for sure. I think the Hornady PRC shot at 7,000 feet. It's high, but that match, dude, is so. I mean, it has got close targets, far targets. You're shooting anywhere from 200 to a mile, and it's fun. It's put on by George Gardner from GA Precision.
Yep.
On the Mormons Ranch, Deseret Ranch, 250,000 square acres. It's Hornady Precision owns the hunting rights to it. So whenever you see their videos of their sponsored shooters killing big elk, it's done on that freaking ranch. That ranch is amazing, huge. And it's only an hour and a half from my house. So,
oh wow.
But the Hornady PRC match sells out in like 5 minutes because it has a prize table to rival the finale. And it's put on by Hornady. Like, it's so fun. Dude, that was nothing but humble pie last year, though.
So here's the thing, though. Okay, like when you hear about like these big matches and like you have like matches with bigger prize tables sell out in 5 minutes, what exactly does that do and tell you for are they really interested in growing the sport when your typical, I'm not going to say your brand new shooters, but your newer shooters are like, okay, well, it's like I can't be there waiting for this thing to drop and like be able to register at this time. It's like, okay, it basically, it almost seems like it's an elitist sport.
Well, the Hornady PRC match is an elitist sport, right? Okay. I think it's got a $350 entrance fee. And I mean, it's an elitist sport. It's hard. I would not take a new shooter to that match. They would come out crying because it is hard and it's a grind. And even veteran shooters come out looking like brand new shooters. Like it's not an easy match. The last year, and you can go find it. Go to Anarchy's YouTube channel. I put a whole bunch of stage videos up from when I shot it 2 years ago. On day 2, we were shooting. It looks like Maui's fishhook, like his fishhook. It's a hill that goes up like 300 feet and it hooks back, and you shoot all 20 stages around this hill. Well, we started at the bottom of the hill on day 2. We couldn't fill the 45-mile-an-hour wind that was out at 1,200 yards or out at 600 yards. So we were shooting at targets, and, we were looking at each other like we're putting 20-mile-an-hour winds into the kestrels, and we're trying to guess, and we're watching them drop 5 mils to the left. And by the time, because you're transitioning so many different targets, by the time you, work your way onto it, you're like, dude, I'm pulling 5-6 mils of wind, and you're watching your bullet just fly into nowhere. It's just like, and you can't feel the wind. No wind on your body. You can't feel it. So you're like, and usually you don't shoot in 40-mile-an-hour winds. It's rare. I've done it twice in my whole life. and but you can't feel it, you couldn't see it. It was a very frustrating day until you realize, you know what, I'm just having fun, and
Yep.
the frustration left, and we didn't hit very many targets, and it was fun. Like, I don't know,
So,
but
along the same lines, I love the fact that 22 LR is being pushed so hard in competition nowadays.
it's fun. I love the 22 stuff, and it directly translates into center fire if you don't develop the bad habits for recoil. Like it very the skills are very much there.
But Ryan is like, I prefer centerfire because the 22 guys are bougie. So what's the truth? Is it like more early? Is it more beginner friendly, or is it legit 22 is bougie?
I feel like the 22 is a little more bougie because centerfire rifles don't have a lot of frills or gimmicks on them, but
Okay.
the 22 rifles, especially because there's more like production guns, guys put a little more bougie frills on their guns and stuff, but they also get like the little shopping cart they drag behind them, and they've got, freaking tripods with umbrellas on them. Like, I don't know, but to me, 22 is a lot more laid back than centerfire. And
Interesting. Okay.
and honestly, a lot of the guys that I shoot centerfire with also shoot 22. So it's very much the same group of
But
guys that I've shot with for years.
at 22, can you shoot semi-auto as well? So if somebody has like a nice 1022, we can play with that.
You would need to buy a kid super grade. If your 22, if your 1022 does not have a match grade barrel and bolt and profile, you won't be able to compete. That being said, I got beat by a 1022 pretty bad once, but but that guy that beat me showed up 8 months later, and he walked away like the skill level of the 22 shooters is exponentially increasing currently, like unbelievable. He hasn't shot for like, I don't know, 8 months. He shows up, he's at the bottom. He's like, 8 months ago I beat every single one of you, and it's like, well, you haven't shot. Your skill set is down. You're using old gear. Like, you're just not. The guys I shoot with, man, they've been on an exponential learning curve, and it's just it's been phenomenal to watch. And the
Okay.
voodoo guys, you can buy accuracy, and I can prove it to you. I have a buddy who has a structured barrel by Tatcom on his Voodoo 22. It shoots quarter-inch groups at 100 yards. You can hand his gun to anyone, and they're not going to miss. Like, they have to purposely pull the gun off target for it to miss. It's stupid. We had to move his gun from 50 yards to 100 yards so we could make sure we weren't shooting through the same hole. Like, I've never seen a gun shoot like that.
Okay.
And if
So,
you guys don't know what a structured barrel is, so Tatcom takes a barrel and they drill 6 holes around the center bore to give it like an I-beam structure. Then they put it in a computer, and it's got rings and holes drilled all over. So they do the harmonics on it, and then they attach it to the action. Dude, it's stupid.
nice. So is Kenny at Eagle Eye doing actions now too, or like he will roast them again? Je ne sais pas. Brian, you'll have to do that. Now,
Well, Voodoo just got purchased by a bigger company, and got put in a group with a couple other firearm companies. So we'll see if they maintain their quality.
PRS is a pretty physical sport at time. So actually, going back to that, so are the same guys, Greg and who was the other guy at Voodoo? Are we still there, or
Yeah. Paul is like in an advisory position.
Okay.
And Greg is still there. Yep.
Okay. Sniper Challenge in Ohio is a hell of a match. Okay, invite only. That's actually an interesting one, and the crazy part is it's at my local range. Well, it used to be at my local range, but Geisley has a range really, really close to me, so I probably should do that too.
And another one is, like I said, go look up the Guardian matches. They're fun. I know they do them in Georgia and Pennsylvania, and they do the one at the Cameo Shooting Complex in Colorado Grand Junction. They're just fun to shoot.
Get me the dates ahead of time. I'll absolutely be there. We'll make some videos around it. I think that would be a great experience.
Yeah, I was thinking about doing an event this summer where we take so NRL 22 are kind of like 100-yard shooters, but we want to transition them into field matches out to 350. So I was thinking about doing a day where we bring them out and I put some of the most experienced shooters in the country at a stage, and it's just training session.
Nice.
Like, hey, this is like shoot this stage and let me watch what you do, and hey, try this drill, and over here, hey, you ever shot your 22 to 400 yards? Let's see what it does on paper, right? And have them shoot out and be able to, mark it and be like, hey, because a lot of them just don't know what preparation they need for to shoot out that far, especially with a rimfire. So,
fortune cookie bag.
I don't like it. I don't like the fortune cookie. My father-in-law has one, and I cannot get him to stop using it. I don't like the fortune cookie at all.
Not all the top shooters are as nice as Robert Brantley. He's a super nice guy, typically top of the match. Okay, so this is actually interesting. Price to sponsor a stage depends on the match. Certain matches may charge way more than $10K to sponsor a stage. That is crazy.
Yeah, so I have a match who asked me to sponsor them. It's $250 in cash for the stage, and then $750 in merchandise or prizes or certs or whatever. So it's not. It's definitely not out there.
PRS is a very niche market. Not a lot of people can afford the match fees alone for PRS matches. Most match fees are an average $250 for a 2-day match. That is, yes.
Well,
except I guess the local matches.
COVID really killed it. COVID made components really, really expensive. It was bearable until you can't find components, and now components are stupid expensive. So,
all right, so you guys are like ideas. Just retrofit an S-FAR with 6GT barrel and run it in a gas gun division. That would be interesting. So I do have I just picked up, well, actually immediately after SHOT Show, I have a Ruger S-FAR in 6.5 Creedmoor now. I shot it at SHOT Show. I'm like, ooh, this is super, super cool. I am looking forward to it. So next week it's going to be warm. I have all of these guns I got to go out to the range with, and that's going to be one of them.
You keep saying warm. Like you don't shoot in the cold?
I do, but it's a pain in the ass. Like when you bring out the cameras and all of that stuff.
You keep saying match season's about to begin. I'm 4 matches in since January.
That's because you're hardcore.
That's right. We don't stop, baby.
No.
Don't stop.
6GT is great in a gas gun. Now, 6GT, so that would basically be, does it fit in, would it have to be AR-10 or can you stuff that in an AR-15?
Well, you could do it in a SFAR, in a Ruger SFAR, probably.
Yeah.
You need 308 magazines for it.
Because, I mean, it's a shortened 308, but I guess not that short.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that really the mag size is a little smaller than that, but it's... Yeah. Well, Max, did you want to talk what else I keep in my gear bag, or...
Sure, and we can...
You good?
And we can basically do that. We're going to turn this into an audio podcast. Max, you're going to shoot the Gate Tiger? That'd be fabulous. Huh?
That's what a 6GT is. 6GT is a Gate Tiger.
Oh.
Did you not know that?
No.
I don't even remember how that happened 3 years ago, because the GT is a George Gardner round.
Yeah. I know that.
Someone made a Gay Tiger joke.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, so someone made so just go Google it. GT Gay Tiger, and you'll find some of the funniest stickers and just jokes out there.
You know what it is? Like, honestly, like the caliper that I'm like really interested in after SHOT Show and finally shooting it for the first time, 22 arc. I mean, like we're shooting it like out of a Uintah upper at 970 yards. It was like a laser beam with like no recoil, and it seems like it's just fun.
Yeah, the 22 R well, I literally have to put a trigger. I have to put a trigger and a handle on my 6 arc and it's done.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought my 6 arc barrel the day they released 22 arc. So I'm quite upset.
Yeah, 6 arc is not going anywhere. I think now it's going to be even more popular since one of
the problem with the 6 arc versus the 22 arc is they can't build the 6 arc pressure wise to run in both gas and bolt guns.
Yeah.
Whereas the 22 arc will be compatible in either one. So, anyways.
Interesting. All right.
So well, actually, bending ballistic, since you're a PRS shooter, what do you run in your bag besides what we mentioned already?
Well, we're going to bring Ryan on next time, and we will continue this conversation. But no, he's go ahead. So finish up with your bag, and
so
then
here we'll talk. What else does Aaron keep in his bag?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Something else a new shooter needs: some way to display their dope while they're shooting. So I just recently changed to an armband, and I also recently changed to how I lay out my stages. I actually go into Excel and I write them up before I show up. So then you can see the targets, the orders, the number of rounds, the name of the target, the dope, all of that. So I write it up before I show up. So you can see examples of that. Right. Then I can track 8 out of 12 or whatever. So my brother-in-law started doing that and he's like, you should do this. And I was like, I hum and hawed for a little bit, but this is what I started doing. I don't really use the inside ones. I just use this on my wrist. But for years, I ran this one, which goes on your hand like this. So I've ran this one for years. And then you have kind of a more traditional Picatinny, mounted one. I keep this in my bag for new shooters that don't have one. I can throw it on their gun, and I have cards and stuff so that they can have some dope. So I keep a way to display my dope in my shooting bag.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, you gotta have ear pro. Unless you're bougie 22, then you don't need it.
So along the same lines, suppressors. Do you guys shoot them with the suppressors, without suppressors? What's the deal?
Not in 22. When you tip your gun up, you can drop all of what's in your suppressor down your barrel. Right? Like I don't do it. Now in center fire.
Oh, you mean like
suppressors?
The lead? You mean like the lead and stuff? That's
from a 22. But in center fire, you a suppressor is a disadvantage because it doesn't mitigate recoil as well as the best muzzle brakes.
Yep.
That being said, there are very specific suppressors that do a really good job, like the Area 419 Maverick, and I think some of the new KGM cans, and I think Thunder Beast has a can coming out. But, it takes a year to do paperwork, and so in centerfire, you see mostly just brakes ran. APA, Area 419, Strike Without Warning, Eric Cortina's stuff.
Okay. Now, on the Ear Pro, is it mostly like muffs or people use plugs?
A lot of people will use both. It just depends on how much you want to protect your hearing. I'm deaf, so I just wear these. So electronic muffs, and then I have smaller pairs that go in my ears, but I like these. They work pretty well.
Yeah, and I guess basically, I mean, you're shooting around people who have very effective brakes, and those are loud as hell. And if you're shooting under cover, you want double up.
Oh yeah, like you can ring yourself pretty good, but in a match, you're 10 or 20 feet behind the shooter. Okay. So their shooting doesn't really affect you. Only on really small ranges do they stack shooters, right? And then you kind of get stuff back and forth.
Okay.
So I'm just looking at what he says. He's got bore snakes. I carry batteries for all my different stuff.
Yeah. Toolkit.
Of course, you have to carry magazines. I think this is redundant because this is a 12 round and this is a 14 round.
So typically for a stage, how many mags do you go onto a stage with?
I typically carry 2 mags. So
Okay.
for rimfire and for centerfire, I'll carry what is this? This is a 10 round mag until I made it a 12 round mag.
Okay.
So this is a 12 round mag, and then this is a 15 round mag. Oh, look, I got bullets in it. Nice. So typically, because if you have malfunctions or jams,
Yep.
I'll keep a spare magazine on my body. If I have a malfunction or a jam, I'm going to throw that magazine in the dirt and I'm going to grab my new magazine, right?
But typically on a stage, you're not going to be required to do a mag change.
The NRL 22 bullshiz has started doing one every match, but in some PRS stages that I've shot, they'll have a magazine 10 feet away. So you have to, you fire 5 rounds. You got to drop your mag, go get the other one, finish. Or they'll have individual bullets. Like you have to grab 3 bullets at a time and you're single feed them. Like I've seen all sorts of crazy stuff. So that's why you come prepared, right? You have 10 round mags, you got 15 for center fire. You've got 12 or 14 round mags. Usually 12 rounds are enough, and you carry an extra one. In center fire, I carry 2 on the side of my rifle. So if you have a malfunction, you can just slide one in and single feed them.
How many rounds is a typical course of fire for matches?
So for the 22 stuff, they can range anywhere from 70 to 100.
No,
and
per
the
stage.
PRS,
Stage.
10.
10.
So a typical stage is 10. In the 22 stuff, you're starting to see 12 to 15 round stages.
Okay.
So, but in center fire, it's very rarely do you see them above 12.
So unless you live in a gun controlled state, you shouldn't have to do a magazine change.
No, but it does happen. So, like in this course of fire, whoever writes these, they're starting, like they're realizing people have 15 round magazine capacities and things. So in this stage, right here, stage 4, and you can go to the NRL 22's website and download this. It's required to do a mag change after the first shot and before the last shot. So you have to do at least one, and it's a 12 round stage.
Yeah. So no, basically like for multi-gun and like USPSA, we would like, okay, you're generally going to need to do a mag change. And let's say, for example, if the maximum course of fire is 32 rounds, you would have enough mags with you for a double or sometimes even 3x that, just because you don't know, you might have a magazine malfunction, things like that.
Yep. And then he also, what did he say? Rain cover for your gun. So I got rain cover for my gun. Of course, you've got ammo. Little ammo boxes. Center fire ammo. I carry a left-handed glove because holding a metal chassis is really cold. So when I shoot, you'll usually see I have a left-handed glove and I don't have anything on my right hand. I've carried this sling for 7 years. I've used it 4 times, but when I do use it, it comes very much in handy. There used to be more sling stages. They're not quite as common anymore, but I carry a sling in my bag. And then I carry this shooting bag. I only use if I'm using tripod rear support. This goes on the very end of my gun on the spigot, and I use it in very specific circumstances. So.
Okay, and looks like
I carry that.
Looks like a fix-it sticks kit.
Yeah, I actually carry 2 different kits in my backpack, which is, you can barely see it in the corner there.
So I think you have my favorite, the all-in-one torque driver kit.
Yeah, I have an all-in-one torque, and then I carry. This is a PWS gas block tool, and then I just carry some other random stuff in here. So, but I have their full kit down there, and for all you Ruger precision shooters and stuff, we're about got a specific kit ready for the Ruger precisions. So,
Very nice.
and then that's what I carry, right? So I carry all of that, and then timer, clicker, kestrel, spotting scope with a reticle in it, and
Hmm.
then rangefinder and binos. And then the tower in the middle is when I'm running the kestrel, I'll put it up on top, and then I have a HUD over there, and I'm just beginning to learn how to use the HUD. So, but this
Okay.
is my typical setup. And if I'm shooting on a really small range for 22, I just carry this, and I put everything I need in the pocket right there, and I don't carry my shooting. I
Okay.
don't carry my big range bag that's over there.
All right. So what I haven't seen there yet, and I'm not sure if it's oversight or you guys don't use them anymore. So I know in some of the ELR matches, people will attach a magneto speed right to their gun. I know recently we've been discussing the Garmin Zeros and the new MyLab radar. Are you going to be running those right on the gun or no?
There's your Garmin.
Okay. So are you going to be
So
running it
I
attached to
will
the gun?
not. No,
Okay.
no, I will not say how I run this because the warranty is voided if you put it on your gun. So
Okay.
I will not ever admit that I have. I may or may not have done that in the past.
Okay.
So
All right.
there's its tripod.
Okay.
So
So you're not okay. So you wouldn't actually. Well, here's the question basically then at that point. Okay, like if you're do you actually have time to look at the like let's say for example, you pull the trigger, you call the miss, are you actually having the time to look at the velocity data to see whether it was the velocity or not? Or like is it going to be just basically is it in your bag just in case?
it's going to be in your bag just in case. And I see this more prevalent in center fire.
Hmm.
Like you start the morning, it's 45 degrees, and you end the day
Yeah.
and it's 85. You're going to swing. And what makes the Garmin kind of unique is you could attach it to your rifle and shoot a stage and get new speeds, right? Without being disqualified or anything. So
Oh,
it
so you can
has,
actually it's within the rules. You can actually
yeah, they don't care as long as it's attached to your gun, right? They don't care what you attach to your gun. So a lot of guys run GoPros or whatever, right? Most ROs
Hmm,
probably wouldn't even notice it on the gun. So
very cool.
oh,
All right.
I also carry a Leatherman in there, and then like I have some hand warmers and other stuff I
And
carry.
snacks. I don't see your bag of beef jerky and snacks.
I actually thought about that while I was going through my bag. I was like, I need to go get the snack bag back in there.
And the
But
snacks and the first aid kit and the
I actually
ouch
don't
bag.
have a I don't actually have a first aid kit in my gear. I need to up my game.
All
I
right.
need
So
I
here's
need
one
to
more
do
for you.
that.
Do you have an oops kit, which basically would be all your spare parts for your guns?
No, I don't. I need to do that as well.
Okay.
I do carry I do carry in my truck, I carry a green tote that has all sorts of stuff in it.
Okay.
Extra magazines, cleaning rods, all sorts of stuff in it.
Okay.
So, but no,
So
I have a specific spare parts for my gun. Like if I break the action or my trigger goes down, I do not. Now, when I go to nationals in June, I'll probably take some spare parts with me.
now here's a question. So can you swap out a gun in the middle of a match in case your regular gun goes down?
Typically, no.
Okay.
They would want you to repair your gun, but it really
Okay.
that's at the discretion of the match director.
Okay.
So the rules state what they don't want you doing is bringing two guns and then like running a semi-auto when it's advantageous, and then running a different gun.
Okay.
Or like the last match I shot, I would have loved to have a 10-pound gun because we shot unsupported off your knee and standing
Hmm.
instead of a 20-pound gun. And and it would have been much nicer to do that. So, but yeah,
Here-
no, they don't. Typically, they don't let you change guns. So,
Here's one. You have a reloading press with you.
who's got time to reload? I don't reload. Do you see
Nice.
this bench right here? That used to be my reloading bench. Do you see any reloading stuff on that bench? No.
Oh, very cool. All right, so we've been on for 2.5 hours. I am gonna cut it here because I still have to do a couple little things beforehand. Very interesting. Definitely very, very educational. I think we covered quite a bit and a lot of the gamut. We will definitely have this in a replay, and I'll make it a podcast. I know it's going to be something a little bit interesting, so people can listen to it as well. Any parting thoughts? Anything that we didn't cover about matches? Whether someone should shoot it, whether I just kind of like encouragement for someone just go out there and do it.
Yeah, I would just I would just encourage you to go out and do it. Go see if you can find a friend that does it. Um yeah, find a friend. Find a friend who's willing to invest into the hobby or who's already in it. Um I find that I shoot much more when my brother-in-law is shooting with me. Just because it's like a gym buddy, right? You just need a buddy. And I still like if he doesn't come and shoot with me, I still know most people at the matches, but him and we compete against each other, and he pushes me, I push him, and it's just an awesome dynamic. And it got to the point where he was frustrated with his gun, so I may or may not have purchased a gun and give it to him on permanent loan, so that he would come and shoot with me. But
Awesome.
but it is what it is. Get out there, try it, shoot it. If you have a bad experience, people are mean or whatever, go try it again because you just got someone on a bad day.
Yeah.
Usually the sport is full of really, really nice people. Most shooting people are nice.
Yeah. Very cool. All right. So, on that fun note, thank you everybody for coming. This was an awesome conversation. Definitely enjoyed it. Become a channel member. We have our members only live streams. We're going to be doing those on a more consistent basis as well. If you want to have some awesome merch, go check out our website, luxgun.com. And do check out for all of your upgrades for your handguns and rifles, Anarchy Outdoors. Help support a friend of this channel and follow them on all of our socials. As always, thank you for joining. Thanks for watching. Keep on squatting, and we'll see you in the next video linked up here. Good night. All right.